Hey guys, well, I'm off on an epic adventure once again. Um, I'm going to try fly camping. So I've got all my gear strapped on, got a tent, got my sleeping pad, and everything is in my harness. Um, so I don't have a backpack or anything, which is nice. Got 90% full tank of gas, never taken off with this much gas, so we'll see how it goes. And yeah, we got a 9-mile-an-hour wind, so really heavy, kind of comes and goes. So we'll see if that can get this 300-pound setup, including myself, off the ground. I've never tried this before, so we'll see how it goes. With the 9-mile-an-hour winds, I'm doing a reverse launch, which I rarely do because anything under 5 mile an hour, which I prefer, is a forward launch, just so you can get a little more speed moving forward. But shouldn't have to run much on this, but I end up running a little bit just because the wind is kind of gusting and changing directions just a hair. But pretty easy launch despite all the weight. I pull up, get some altitude here, and then start heading for the mountains. I tried to reach Andy on the radio. I can see his Terex buzzing along below, but we were unable to communicate with each other. We're not on a ham ban right now. We don't have our ham licenses, and I think that's why the radio range is just so limited. But with a 9-mile-an-hour tailwind, you can see I'm swinging around quite a bit. This is the middle day, so there's a lot of thermals going on. They're at full power, and yeah, it's kind of throwing me around pretty good. Not very pleasant flying. This 9-mile-an-hour tailwind is driving me towards these mountains super quick. I'm at full throttle the whole time because I really want to get over them. But as soon as I hit the mountains, I don't have the altitude to go over them like I had hoped. So I'm having to kind of do some circles here to try to get some more altitude. Not really climbing, so I decided I'd try to go for some thermals. Wind's heading from right to left here, so up this mountain. So I head over to the mountain, and sure enough, hit a strong thermal, and it shoots me up above these mountains just within like 5 minutes, really quick. So now I'm cruising around, giving a little panoramic view here so you guys can see sort of where I am. This is my direction, heading over these mountains. Not a lot of landing sites, so I'm trying to keep my altitude nice and high. You can see I'm getting thrown around pretty good. Wind kind of comes off all these mountains and swirls around, and then you got thermals going up underneath each one of these clouds, which every time I hit those, it throws me around pretty good. Pretty stressful flight overall. I love turning the motor to idle and just cruising down. I was starting to get up to cloud base, so here I'm losing a little bit of altitude because I have that airstrip straight ahead. Pulled out the radio, tried to contact Andy again, still no luck, so just heading off towards, you can see I'm getting thrown around pretty good here. It's amazing how each cloud kind of marks where each thermal is, because the thermals are what actually creates the clouds. So I try to kind of steer around the clouds because I don't really particularly enjoy being thrown around. These paramotors can land in a very small area, so a lot of the landing sites I'm keeping within distance are they're just a tiny patch of road on a trail or a tiny meadow, and oh boy, here I'm really getting thrown around good. I know some of you guys, this is like your everyday flight. You guys who don't fly with motors and do cross country just off thermaling, but for me it's kind of a little bit more uncomfortable experience. Not my cup of tea. So I was a little bit stressed. I didn't feel like I was doing anything dangerous, but I had to do some active piloting of the wing, and you know, if it gets too far ahead of you, the wing, when you hit a thermal, you have to tap on the brakes to pull it back, otherwise it could collapse. But a beginner wing like mine doesn't really have any problem with that happening. That's one of the reasons, even after flying for years, I really enjoy just flying a beginner wing, because it's very simple and easy. Here's my destination. I've reached in the middle of the mountains here, little airstrip, not much here. Shut off my motor at a good altitude. I've got a good, probably 15-mile-an-hour wind coming at me, so I'm coming down almost vertical. There's my flare. Ease my feet down. Butter soft landing. Very pleased with how all that went. Replay.
That was amazing.
You can see my follow me cam hanging down there, just a soda bottle.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that was great.
Hey guys, well, I just landed, and wow, what a trip. That was crazy. I've never done anything like that. So first off, every time I've gone into the air with winds over 5 miles an hour, I have always regretted it. And this time I had 9-mile-an-hour winds. And you could see, I don't know if you could see those trees blowing, but it's pretty windy out here. And then the higher you go, you just get into a lot of wind. And with all these mountains, the wind comes and it hits the mountains and it starts swirling off the back of it. And in my mind, when I started doing this trip, I was like, well, I'll just go up above the mountains and I'll get way above them and I won't run into any of that rotor coming off the mountains. But the mountains are quite tall, so I was staying right under cloud level, because as soon as you go above the clouds, it gets super cold, and I was trying to keep it a manageable temperature. So I made it all the way out to this airport. There's nothing out here. This is so cool. So my brother-in-law, I lost sight of him, and our radios didn't seem to be working. The plan was that we would chat. Man, I burned a lot of fuel. Look at that. I went from here to there, which is probably almost half my fuel. So I'm gonna have to be a bit careful on the way back. Oil coming out. Machine ran great, no problems. One of my longest flights, looks like we got a little oil. That's pretty normal. It's 2 strokes, just put out lots of oil. Yeah, so I started emptying my bag. I was just getting out my sidearm, because this is wolf and bear country. And man, look at this wind. It's just, you can see the grass just howling through here. At one point, I was getting these huge updrafts. And man, I've experienced that a few times, I guess, but it's been rare. I did have to consult my phone. After a while, I was kind of unsure. I'd kind of memorized the map in my head and was heading that direction. But after a while, the mountains all kind of looked the same. And so I pulled out my phone and I just went to Google Maps and adjusted my direction by about 20 degrees. And it's a good thing, because I wouldn't been able to see this little airstrip, in the midst of all these mountains. It's kind of tucked away in here. It's pretty cool. We got some camping tables off here. It's nice to have a windsock up, which is blowing like crazy. Man, that was a great landing. I thought I was coming down pretty fast, and when you have this much wind, you're pretty much just hovering, coming straight down, and so you think, oh man, I'm going to hit really hard. Well, and then you you pull on the brakes and you do your flare, and even though don't have any ground speed, you can still do a flare because you have plenty of wind speed still. So yeah, I just barely put my toes out and came in, just eased into the landing very nicely. With all the weight I'm carrying, I was a little bit nervous if landing was going to be a little bit of trouble. Well, got all my gear stored away. This is kind of sweet. They have these picnic tables, little barbecue, got a picnic table or a foldable table, regular table, some firewood here. Look, I guess the mailman comes out here or what? That's interesting. This is sweet. And then I don't know what this is. Is this like the pilot's lounge? Will it be open? No way. No way. It's open. Sweet. Who needs a tent? We just sleep in here. Got a wood stove. Oh, this is perfect. This is really great. I love it. Now, you'd hate to, well, I guess they just don't even have a lock on this thing. Well, that's cool. Lots of firewood if you're willing to split it. Andy's bringing some of our own. Oh man, this is epic. I love it. It is so cool to start in your backyard, lift your feet off the ground, and sail off into the wilderness, and then find a little spot like this. Just come in and land. Got all your gear with you, all your food, and you can just come hang out. What a fun time. So my radio hasn't been working the whole time, but I just heard Andy on it. So sounds like Andy's here. He's trying to figure out a way to get over here. So that's great. I'm glad our radios are working. I have no idea why they weren't working on the flight. Maybe we're too far of distance. I don't know. I can hear, oh, here he comes. There he is. My flight took me about an hour and a half, and Andy got here in about 2 hours, but he drives super fast. So we found this little rental up here, which is pretty cool. It's an old fire station. Looks like you can probably rent it online somewhere. And it's pretty cool. They got a couple beds in here, a little wood stove over there, matches, and soap. Now we're headed off again to look at a mountaintop, possible paramotor camping area. So we're up here on a mountaintop, and I think this would be a pretty good place to do a little paramotor camping. Fly in a couple different directions. Land, it'd be a little bit dicey, but we could do it. We also heard that there was some waterfalls in the area, so we're exploring and trying to find those. The light is quickly fading, so we have to jet off pretty soon to head back to our campsite. While we were on the trail, we spotted a couple elk. Pretty cool to see. I was hoping to see some bear or some moose, but next time.
This is a great campsite over here.
Yeah, this is a deer.
There's some deer running ahead of us here. I don't know if you can see it. It's pretty dark. The stars out here were just amazing. We're 25 miles from civilization, so the stars, you can see the Milky Way and everything. It's just really cool. We woke up the next morning, and of course we have this gorgeous low hanging clouds that rolled through. Just gorgeous. Figured better wait a little bit for this to burn off before I took to the air again. So I read in the sign-in sheet for the flight log that we're supposed to destroy a beaver dam every time we land. And we were looking for it here. And here it is right here. It's kind of interesting. I guess the cabin up there gets flooded when the beavers build a dam here. And it's pretty cool that these beavers put this together. It's like a lot of elevation drop here, probably 2 feet. It looks like they put it together with mud and almost like looks woven. Pretty cool. Here Andy's barbecuing his shoes to get them nice and dry. That one looks like it's ready to be turned. I'm all set up for my flight back home. I lined up perpendicular to the runway but facing directly into the wind. I've got a 5-mile-an-hour wind coming over the top of this mountain, and I figure I'll face into it, and then whichever way my wing falls naturally, I'll turn and head off in that direction for takeoff. So I pull it up, wing starts to fall to the right, so I turn right, get underneath it, pull a little left brake, straighten out, give it some throttle, and just really running it out here. Might have a little bit of a tailwind. But I'm pretty confident at this point I'm going to get off the ground. I just got to wait for my gust. And here it comes, and I'm off the ground. I did borrow a gallon of gas from Andy. Turns out I didn't need it, but it's better safe than sorry. I didn't want to have to do an emergency landing somewhere. This flight home was totally different than my flight there. I got back in only an hour instead of an hour and a half. Because on my way here with all the thermals and stuff, I was trying to avoid them and avoid turbulence around mountains, and with this flight I could just make a beeline straight for home and didn't have to do any zigzagging or anything like that. I'll speed this flight up a little bit so you can kind of see the terrain.
Well, I'm so glad that I decided to fly back instead of having Andy drive me back. Totally worth it. This is absolutely perfect. So on the way here it was pretty stressful getting bounced around. But this is like relaxing. A little bit cold. Dropping in altitude here. I have an airport down here that I'm about to fly straight over, a little grass strip. So I don't mind dropping a little altitude. I still gotta get over these mountains. The airstrip down there, I'm just about to come into view. If I did this trip again, I would definitely make both my flights in the morning or evening when you have these calm conditions. It's so much more relaxing and enjoyable to fly at this time of day without the thermals. One thing I didn't realize, but as soon as I left, Andy took off in the Terex and he broke down about a mile later. Luckily, he had a satellite phone, was able to text someone and have them come rescue him. So he ended up spending about all day out in those mountains is where we camped. And now turning around this way, that's somewhere out there is my home. Dropping my altitude down now that I have fields closer by to land at, and temperatures are getting a lot warmer, which is nice. I can see my house there, feels good. I love these little round bales of hay that they got on the field next door. I'm gonna buzz by, look at my flag, and then I'll turn around and make my landing. This was a super epic trip, and I'm definitely gonna do it again. If you guys would like to see more stuff like this, feel free to subscribe, and I'll keep pumping out the videos here soon.
Why, good morning, children. So good to see you. I missed you guys too. Hi, Charlotte.
Daddy?
And there's even a little Danielle waving at me. I went camping in the forest.
Daddy? Take it off, Daddy. Toys.
I didn't bring any toys. Well, I was just camping.
And he's a dad. And he doesn't play with toys.
Yep.
But he plays with that toy.
Yeah, that's my toy.
His
That was a lot
paraglider
of
said
fun.
that thing's